Back in the vanilla WoW days before YouTube, Reddit, and Discord existed, there were certain unspoken rules players abided by. There wasn't any evidence of their existence stated explicitly in the game itself, yet most players followed them as they went about their business. These rules, this code if you will, was a form of etiquette created and passed on from player to player. The only way you would learn this etiquette was by playing the game and interacting with your fellow World of Warcraft players. If you didn't happen to play vanilla, or if you started in another expansion, or if classic World of Warcraft will be your first experience with Warcraft in general, not knowing about the way players do certain things can put you in an awkward situation and possibly even anger those less patient with newer players. In this video, I hope to let you in on a few unwritten vanilla WoW rules and why players followed them. So whether you're brand new to WoW or just need a little refresher after all these years, my hope is that by the end of this video, you'll be a little more confident and familiar with how players interact with each other in the world of Warcraft. Just a small disclaimer before I start the video, I am by no means saying you need to follow the etiquette I will be going over in this video. Just generally speaking, this is the behavior that I'd say the majority of Warcraft veterans tend to adopt in certain scenarios. If you want to be a notorious ninja looter known server-wide, that is completely your prerogative and you're entitled to do so. Now on to the video. I will be organizing the following codes of conduct, so to speak, from the time you should start seeing people perform them. In other words, some of these you will see as soon as you create your character and take on your first few quests, and others you will start seeing when you decide to tackle group quests or dungeons a little later on in your journey. You should start seeing other players buff one another randomly as soon as everyone loads into their respective starting zones. Priests giving you Power Word Fortitude for that nice stamina buff, mages giving fellow casters Arcane Intellect for the bonus int it provides, as well as druids, shamans, and paladins giving all their respective buffs to fellow Alliance and Horde players. These buffs may seem insignificant, but they can provide some pretty nice boost to your stats, and any help you can get during the early levels helps tremendously with leveling. If you choose to roll any class that can provide a nice buff to another player that doesn't have access to that same buff, consider taking the time to cast it on them as a token of good faith and camaraderie. You never know, that extra stamina you provided them might be the difference between life or death in a near future encounter. Pretty soon after you start your World of Warcraft journey, mobs will go from a neutral yellow, which means they won't attack until attacked, to red, which means they will attack as soon as you're in their aggro range. Sometimes a player will accidentally aggro too many enemy monsters at once. In vanilla World of Warcraft, this usually means certain death for most classes when you are lower level. If you see someone struggling to stay alive while taking on multiple mobs, you have two choices. Either party up with them if there's any indication they are working on the same quest or quests as you, or just simply walk up to the mob that has more health and start attacking. This will remove aggro from them, thus reducing the amount of damage they are taking. If you are a class that is able to heal, you can also send a heal their way as a way to help them out and also potentially pull aggro away from the extra monster. Corpse runs resulting from death suck, and if you can help avoid one for someone else, I'm sure someone will end up doing it for you in the future. This goes into the next form of WoW etiquette. Some quests are just too difficult to tackle on your own. Certain classes like the warrior or the rogue really struggle with taking on multiple mobs, higher level mobs, or elite mobs on their own at lower levels. This is when you need to party up with players also attempting to finish the same quest you're stuck on. There are multiple ways of quote-unquote doing this correctly. The first is by walking up to where the quest objective or mob is located. Once you're there, look for any players waiting around or killing things nearby. Send them a PM or whisper as they're known in-game, and ask them if they are currently trying to complete the quest you're on. If they say no, ask if they'd be nice enough to help you complete it anyway. More often than not, people will happily agree to helping you out. You can also join general chat for the area you're in and ask if anyone is looking for help on the quest you're attempting. Usually people will either respond on that same channel or send you a whisper. You can then right-click their name and send them an invite to add them to a group. These are the accepted ways to tackle a harder quest. If you're playing a pet class that allows you to complete harder quests on your own, make sure you check your surroundings before you just waltz in and steal the mob in front of everyone. Vanilla WoW is not like retail. Just because you tagged or landed a hit on the mob does not mean you will get your share of the loot or the credit for the kill you need to complete the quest. You need to be in a party and in near proximity when the mob is killed. For a lot of people, leveling their professions goes hand in hand with leveling their character. This means that there will be a lot of people fighting over materials like ore and herbs scattered across starting zones. A lot of the spawn points for said materials are often near enemy patrol routes. This means in order to access them, you will need to first clear a path leading you to them. If you see someone fighting a mob near an ore node or herb, Walking up to it and taking it while they're fighting is seen as extremely rude behavior. It's not a bannable offense or anything like that, and in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing to get upset over. But just as a heads up, if you do this to someone, they will not be happy. Waiting that extra second for them to kill the mob will help you determine what their intentions are. If they kill the mob and leave, that ore/herb is all yours. If they kill the mob and quickly start to mine or pick the material, well then you just have to beat them to the next one, which shouldn't be too far off. Once you get to around level 20, chances are you'll be venturing off to places like the Stone Talon Mountains, Thousand Needles, Ashenvale, or the Hillsbrad Foothills. These areas will probably end up being the first zones you encounter the enemy faction. If you're on a PvP realm, this also means you can now kill or be killed by the opposite faction, better known as ganking. World PvP and ganking are 100% allowed, and even one of the aspects a lot of us are super excited about. But there is a topic of contention people have been discussing since WoW's initial release. Is the ganking and in some extreme situations the corpse camping of low-level players okay? If I was asked this personally, I would say it's fair game. It's part of playing on a PvP server. It just wouldn't be vanilla World of Warcraft without ganking in my honest opinion. However, that doesn't mean I would do it in most cases. I think it's a pretty shitty thing to do, and above all, I think it's a waste of time. The killing of someone 10, 20, or even 30 levels under you is pointless. You're really not proving anything since they have absolutely zero chance against you. When I log on, I personally like to do things that are going to progress my character while I'm online. Killing lobies does nothing for me. Minus needing to counter gank someone who thinks they're unstoppable because they're level 60 killing level 16s in Stone Talon, I won't be wasting my time doing this. But you are totally allowed to if that's where you get your fun. That's the beauty of World of Warcraft. Mages and their portals, rogues and their lockpicking skills, and players with crafting professions can all offer their services to other players. Most people require payment to use such services, but once in a while, you'll run into someone who is willing to extend a helping hand and offer them to you for free. In these cases, it's expected that you give the player helping you out a tip for their troubles. It doesn't have to be tons of gold, but just a little something to show appreciation. Again, as with all the etiquette tips I've listed thus far, it's not something that is required at all, but I won't lie to you. Most players have grown accustomed to being thanked for taking time out of their day to help you out. If you choose to carry yourself in-game with respect for others and their time, you will be noticed and remembered, which in vanilla WoW is a big deal. The next few aspects of WoW's old etiquette all revolve around dungeons, which as most of you know are a big part of World of Warcraft as early as level 13, when you can start running them. So let's start off with dungeon quests. Most vanilla dungeons have quests you can complete by finishing certain objectives while inside the dungeon. A lot of these quests start in either major cities or from prerequisite quests you've already completed out in another zone. Once you've got a full dungeon group going and everyone is in the dungeon together, it's common courtesy to take a moment and share whatever dungeon relevant quests you may have picked up, just in case your party members haven't picked them up themselves. You can do this by opening up your quest log and selecting Share Quest. This will automatically share the quest with everyone in range. Vanilla dungeons aren't a great source of EXP on their own. Some people even choose to completely avoid them while leveling due to how much they slow you down. Completing dungeon quests can help reward you with at least some EXP, pretty decent gear rewards, and of course, a little bit of money. Moving on to loot etiquette, which is probably the most important topic of this video. This affects your reputation on a server more than anything else. If you have never played World of Warcraft, paying attention to this segment and learning how loot works will save you from a ton of hate coming your way because you decided to roll need on a dagger meant for rogues as a hunter. When an item of uncommon quality or higher drops in a group setting, World of Warcraft automatically brings up a die rolling system that determines the winner of that specific item. The confusing part for a lot of beginners comes from the need, greed, pass system. So let's first talk about choosing need. As the name implies, you should only select this if the item or weapon that has dropped is something useful to your character and will be used immediately and in your current specialization. For example, in the footage you are watching, the Robe of Evocation cloth chest piece drops while I was running Ragefire Chasm on my Warlock. As this is an upgrade to what I'm currently equipped with, I decide to select need. The quote-unquote right thing to do if you were in my group and didn't need the robes yourself would be to select greed or pass. Don't worry, we'll talk about the greed option in a second. If you take a look at the chat bar, you can see the shaman in my group, who is currently playing a melee spec, decides they want to roll need on it as well. As you can quickly see, someone else in my group has a problem with this, since the same shaman needed a melee cape a bit earlier on in the run. It's rude to need everything because in reality, you only need one type of armor while leveling in most cases. Especially at this low of a level, the shaman will easily be able to find a decent caster or healer chest piece from a quest or for really cheap on the auction house. This robe would have been great for me, as my character is strictly a damage dealing caster, which means I will get more use out of it over someone who is only sometimes in a caster spec. Now, greed is what I personally consider the default option most of the time. If something of uncommon rarity drops but no one needs it desperately, most people in the group will roll need. The winner is again decided by an in-game random roll of numbers and awarded to the player with the highest number out of the roll. This person can then vendor it, disenchant it, or send it to an alternate character if they have use for it. The last option is pass, which is also used when you don't need something that may have dropped. Pass is usually only used when you really can't be bothered to roll for something you know you don't want or someone else is needing. There's really no point in selecting greed if you know someone else is selecting need, as need outweighs greed. If your group has a dedicated disenchanter, everyone else will select pass so that they can get the item and then disenchant it. So to end this segment off, going around needing everything will eventually result in people calling you a ninja looter. Now, despite sounding like a good thing, it's not. Most ninja looters are put on people's shit list and are not invited to their groups or friends list. These people then tell their friends you're on their shit list, and the number of players who don't want to play with you increases. Reputation ruined. This will make it harder to join a good guild or even have a good group of people on your friends list you can count on for dungeons or raids. This will eventually severely stunt your character's progression, so think twice about needing that shiny blue sword drop from SFK if you don't really need it. Now, the last topic I want to cover in this video also pertains to dungeons and loot. Sometimes in certain dungeons, your group will come across random treasure chests. Players have invented a system should this occur in order to decide who gets to open the treasure chest and receive the loot. This is due to, in vanilla, loot inside a treasure chest of uncommon rarity or higher does not automatically bring up the loot system. So what players do is as soon as someone spots the chest, you all manually roll from 1 to 100 and the winner gets the chest. You can do this by typing in /roll and pressing enter. This will bring up your roll, which you can then compare to the rest of your party. If you fail to do this and decide to just sprint up to the chest and proceed to open it, people will assume you're a ninja looter. Keep in mind, chests may contain some pretty useful stuff, so leave the victor of the spoils up to RNG and save yourself the definite lecture you'd be getting from your teammates. That's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like and please consider subscribing. If you guys like it enough, then I'll eventually come up with a part 2. I'm sure there's some stuff that I missed that I can include in part 2. Next video coming out next week. As you guys know, I'm making one video a week. If you want to keep up with everything I'm doing, make sure you follow me on Twitter. I should be starting to stream on Twitch again soon. I'll let you guys know. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys